seats. So we will move into the next session on In Conversation session. May I request Mr. Dr. K.P. Krishnan, Secretary, Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, Government of India, to come onto the dais. Mr. Simon Bartley, President, World Skill International, Mr. Chirag Goyal, Member, World Skill Champion Trust, and Mr. Mohandas Pai, Chairman, FICCI Skill Development Committee. My humble request to everyone to please come in so that we can be on time. And then you take it. So we now start the session on In Conversation with Mr. Simon Bartley. Since we are a little behind time, I would request if this session can be completed sharp at maybe 12:10, and we will break for coffee for 20 minutes. May I request now Mr. K.P. Krishnan to give some opening remarks, and then Mohan takes over for moderation.
Shall we get going?
Yeah, please go, please.
Morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here as part of this conversation focused on the theme of world skills and skills competitions generally. In recent years, most of you who have been following this field would know that the world skills competitions have helped young people take pride in skills that they possess, and have, these competitions have played an important role in recognizing the skills of young people in India. I'm talking specifically about our context, and have inspired them to excel in their own selected chosen fields. Given where we come from in terms of the oft repeated points about skills not being adequately aspirational in India, this is particularly important. There are various things that public policy and governments can attempt at making skills more aspirational. There is a lot of history and there is a lot of culture behind this issue in India. Some of this relates to ensuring pathways for the skilling ecosystem to merge at some point and converge with the mainstream vocational education and the mainstream educational system, so that there are educational pathways and career pathways. And typically that is a long drawn and more medium-term, long-term kind of effort. Clearly, in the more immediate term, things like the World Skills Competition and the spirit behind the World Skills Competition are the kind of things that are going to have immediate impact and a noticeable impact on the youth. Quick peep into how India has been engaging with world skills. We started this in 2007 when India participated in the World Skills event in Japan in 5 skills. It was limited to only 5 skills at that point in time. And then we continued with participation in Canada, but this time in 2 skills in 2009. But where for the first time in one of the activities we won a silver medal. And 2011 onwards, this has been put on a little more sort of formal structure when this got housed in the National Skills Development Corporation, where India sent a contingent of a fairly decent contingent to participate in 15 skills in 2011. And since then we've been continuing, and in case there's interest, one can get back to this topic. But given the paucity of time and given the kind of experts we have with us, Mr. Simon Bartlett, Mohan Das, and Mr. Goyal, and a whole lot of you who know this business better than I thought I'll just flag maybe 3 or 4 issues which, in my opinion, are relevant in a conversation relating to world skills in India. A, how can we as a country leverage the World Skills event to increase the skills premium or the skilled wage premium for vocationally trained youth across the country? Because the conversation in every skill related activity eventually, and I think correctly, goes back to the question, what is all this leading to in terms of making a difference to people's lives? Is it leading to employment? Is it leading to better employment? So is there a clear wage premium that can be attributed to skills? So can we focus on this question? The relationship may not be immediate and direct, but I think it's a question worth looking at. 2, what can India learn from the experience of other countries in this area? And I'm sure plenty that Simon can tell us on this. He perhaps more than anyone else in this room knows the experience across countries. And 3, and I think particularly relevant for India, is can these competitions, the global level skills competition, help break stereotypes? For instance, there are clear stereotypes about gender. We typically don't see girls working in quote-unquote the hard skill areas. And you look at the world skills competition in terms of winners, clearly the world has gotten over this gender issue. Can India look at this? 2, the typical Indian sort of problem with working with one's own hands, doing manual work, the cultural aspect that I briefly alluded to. Can these competitions help us respect and value the skills that people possess and break away from stereotypes? With your permission, Mohan, I'll stop here and let you now conduct the show. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Krishnan. I think what we need to ensure a premium is the study to say the people with skills and a skill certificate are 30-40% more productive than a person without that. We ought to do a study and to prove to industry why they need to hire people who are skilled, who are certified to be skilled. I think that will really help people take decisions. Simon, now what we want to learn from you is what is the state of skills around the world? What are you at the World Skills Council doing? And what are you doing through this competition? What is the message you want to send across? And how are you ensuring that the skill premium that we all talk about actually exists?
Is that just one question or about 15 all at the same time?
It's all linked together.
What are we doing in World Skills? Well, we exist and have existed for 67 years, which is not a bad track record for any NGO. We've also, in the last 3 or 4 years, changed from being a club, which has all been about a competition held every 2 years, primarily in construction and engineering, in hard skills, as was referred to a movement where competitions are part of what we do, and that those competitions increasingly cover a range of hard and soft skills. So existing with change is something that we regard as one of our successes. Another one of those successes is that we are for the first time, and I didn't mention this earlier, we are for the first time being requested by NGOs such as the World Bank, such as the OECD, as regional economic developers such as the GCC or ASEAN or the European Union, to contribute our knowledge of skills so that the agenda is better informed as to what the future of work and the skills is going to be. And I'm particularly proud of the fact that for the first time, an ambition of mine, which is called the World Economic Forum, most of us know of that as Davos, that happens every year, where government leaders get together and talk about economic matters and matters of high economic intellectual activity, have asked me to go to New York during the United Nations General Assembly next week in order to talk to them about a partnership between the World Economic Forum and World Skills. Now, partnerships, MOUs and others are really boring sort of stuff. But going back to my earlier comments about how governments have changed, World Skills International is not an organization about education. We are now integral with the world of world and government economic policy. So, why is World Skills important? It is because World Skills has changed from promoting skills to actually pushing forward the idea that you cannot run an economy without skills. Future skills, current skills, even past, as I refer to them as biblical skills. Can I just pick up what two of the issues that have just been raised? Breaking stereotypes. You're very kind in saying how World Skills competition has female participants and medal winners. It still isn't enough. And part of the reason for that is because the competition that's going to be held in Abu Dhabi is made up of competitors from individual countries, and individual countries have their own reasons, normally bad, for restricting women's engagement in certain skill sectors. However, let me just tell you, we have female welders coming to World Skills from Muslim Arab countries. We have landscape gardeners, a team of 2 coming, both of whom are female. We have female bricklayers and plumbers. I do not believe that there is a skill that we look at in World Skills where women do not stand an equal chance as men in succeeding not only at a skills competition but in the workplace in their home country. And equally as important, there is not a skill where men cannot compete equally with women in what in the past have been considered female occupations. Women don't need, girls don't need me to champion them. They are quite good enough at championing themselves. What we need to do is to remove our bias towards having women working on lathes and CNC machines, our bias against having women do bricklaying and plumbing. Now, yes, we need to shine a torch on the abilities of the girls who do that and the men who do things like beauty therapy or fashion technology. But actually what we need to do is to back off as old men, particularly in grey suits, and allow the young people of the world to determine what their future is going to be, male, female, whatever religion, whatever country they come from. So your issue about breaking stereotypes, skills is something that makes it easier. Other areas are not so easy. And finally, before I shut up again, or else we'll be all the way through, I see they've turned the clock on. You are already learning in India things from other countries. The 4 competitions you have participated in and that you mention, but more importantly, in the preparation for this 5th competition in Abu Dhabi in a month, you have had people coming here from the United Kingdom. You've had people here from Australia, experts, competitors. Chirag will, I'm sure, comment on the fact that there is an enormous network out there of people who want to help each other. The marvelous thing about skills is that it is primarily political with a small p. We all know that we need skills, and people who know that they need skills are prepared to help each other on a regular basis. And I'm absolutely certain if you were to talk to the representatives from WorldSkills India here, they will tell you about how they exchange information on forums for each of the 50 different skills areas. They will talk about their experts who have accompanied a competitor to a competition, coming back here and trying to speak to other welding instructors, to other cookery instructors, to other bricklayers about what they have seen and learned at these skills competitions. So the structure is already there, but as with so many things, you have to sometimes go out and grasp it and bring it home rather than just let it sit gathering dust on a shelf. So I hope that answers 2 of your many points and answered most of yours as well.
Well, partially, but I'll ask you more.
I thought you might.
Simon, there's an important area which you are left out, I think, which is very important for the emerging markets, because you people in the developed market don't have the skills. Now, there's a lot of traditional skills which are thousands of years old, which have come to us from many, many traditional masters. You're not focusing on them, and as society becomes more automated, these skills could be lost forever, which is a big danger. And as society becomes richer, we will need them much more. Let me give you an example. Weaving. We need master weavers, and there are plenty in India. Sculptors, people who can sculpt with their hand without a drawing, just looking at an image. We need handmade jewelry, people who create jewelry, beautiful pieces with their hand, not machine made. Embroidery, chicken work, tailors who sit down and weave those beautiful garments. Why don't you recognize these traditional skills in a world competition so that we can sustain them, we can preserve them, and society will demand more and more of it rather than factory-made, standardized goods as people become richer?
You said you were going to ask more. They just get more difficult every time you ask me. What we have as competitions in WorldSkills are changing. Most of the pressure, and I'm fascinated by the question, most of the pressure I get is, why aren't you doing more modern skills, not traditional skills? You know, I'm sure Chirag will have been asked by various people in India and around the world, why don't you do a competition on writing an app for an iPhone or a Samsung telephone? Why aren't you doing something on windmills or solar power? Why aren't you doing something on intelligent AI? Part of that is because our engagement with employers at WorldSkills is probably something we need to work on. But it is also something that individual countries have to work on. Modern technologies have to come through as a large enough scale to be able to be picked up by individuals such as WorldSkills India. But going to the traditional ones, WorldSkills is what it says, world. Every one of our competitions, the 50 that you've seen, including the biblical ones, are practiced in all of our 77 countries. We struggle enormously in bringing in traditional skills because, let's just take one of yours, like weaving. Weaving in India may well be different from weaving in Japan, to Colombia, to Namibia. to set a competition for weaving that all those countries are going to, that we're going to find a standard and also develop a competition for, is extraordinarily difficult. Now, we do it in certain things, but let me tell you, and please, my colleagues from WorldSkills, cover your ears. If we look at cookery, the cooking competition in WorldSkills is all French-Swiss-based cooking.
Totally wrong.
Nothing Chinese,
nothing Indian.
1.3 million, 1 billion, 1.4 billion, nothing Indian. However, if we go to the experts in cookery from all of our members and say, what do you want to have as cooking in the competition? The vast majority every time say the highest level of cuisine in our countries is French-Swiss cooking. So how do we beat that? Do we have an Indian cooking competition, a Chinese cooking competition? Indian might pick up 5 or 6 countries, or perhaps some people from United Kingdom or other countries where there is an Indian population. What do we do with Chinese? Well, there'll be China, there may be Chinese Taipei, it might be Korean, Japanese, but do we do a standard that is included in that? I give these as examples of how difficult it is to come up, and I would just correct you on one of them. We do have a manual jewellery competition.
Oh, fantastic.
I think it's the one that you won a silver medal in, isn't it?
No, medallion.
A medallion in.
And also what I would like to mention is that the competitor that we have this year, he hasn't even completed school, but his skills are so good that he's representing India.
Yeah, that's the point. I think people who are not in the formal education area have got these great skills. We must preserve them. Okay, now Chirag, what have you done to become an ambassador for global skills? Young man from India in the web design area, extraordinarily talented. What exactly do you do as ambassador, and what do you do to become an ambassador?
The two parts to the question that you just asked. One is what did I do to become and what I do as an ambassador. I'm going to go in reverse. I'm going to first answer what I do as an ambassador. I was given this role at the end of WorldSkills Sao Paulo after my previous competition. And since then, the primary focus of our team at the WorldSkills Champions Trust is to keep the competitors who have competed in the competition, who by the way we call champions. You win a medal or not, every person who competes in the WorldSkills competition is called a champion for the simple reason that you represent your skill, your industry, your trade, and you've won a gold medal within your own country. So you deserve to be called a champion. Every WorldSkills champion stays engaged with the competition. We have done multiple projects. One of them included us traveling to Rwanda, where we are trying to get refugees and trying to teach them skills so they can be, so that the refugees are not a burden to the economy, but rather considered as a boon to help the economy of the country get better, and so on and so forth. We had the WorldSkills Champions Forum, where we had a lot of champions coming in to Canada, near Niagara Falls, where we all sat by the room, 4 days of rigorous planning and strategic planning as to what projects came in. We presented these projects at the General Assembly to different companies, and this is the youth speaking. The WorldSkills, the one thing I really love about WorldSkills is that they give the youth an opportunity to come forward and speak. So we were given the opportunity to go and speak to every single one of the global partners of WorldSkills and pitch these ideas to them and see what they can help us in to be able to make this as a global project. And as to what I did do to become an ambassador, well, that's another beauty about WorldSkills, is that anybody can become a WorldSkills ambassador. You don't have to be a part of the Champions Trust to be an ambassador. You don't have to be a part of even if you have competed at the WorldSkills national competition, you are a WorldSkills national champion. So you can do things within your own area. So I don't consider myself as an ambassador. I consider myself as a skilled professional. That's about it. And I would, how can we get more such people in the country? We need to get more such skilled people in the country, and that's about it. This profession speaks for itself as an ambassador. We don't need to have people stand there and talk about it.
Now tell me, as a person who's been doing this, how do you make heroes out of skilled people? India requires heroes. We want our skilled people to be seen as heroes, so there's respect, there is money for them, there's recognition, there is brand. What should India do?
Do you have heroes in everything? Do you have heroes?
I never knew you were a hero. No, you really are a hero, a global ambassador. We never knew you. How do you make sure people like you become real heroes so that everybody aspires to be skilled people, not just get a degree and say, I got this piece of paper?
Well, for that, you would have to let the youth come forward and allow them to speak. As being people from the industry, instead of having, as Simon mentioned, old people in grey suits come up and speak, you should rather have the youth come forward and speak. Because
Mine's
if you want to know,
black.
because if you want to know what the youth has to say, then you have to listen to what they have to say.
Can I just add that and bring an international perspective? I think Chirag is too modest about what he does as an ambassador. That's one of the reasons we chose him after Sao Paulo. Let me give one practical thing, and I might be really stepping on some toes of WorldSkills India here. If you want a next generation of heroes, have the 28 competitors who are going to follow the Indian flag into the opening ceremony in Sao Paulo be sent away with a message face to face by your Prime Minister. Before they go, because the really important thing is actually, as Chirag has said, they're champions already. They've got the gold medal in fashion technology, they've got the gold medal in India in all of these skills. They're champions. Your Prime Minister should be saying, as though they were the Olympic team, as though they were your cricket team, please go out and represent India. Don't wait until one or two of those 28 come back with a gold or a silver medal, because then all the press will focus on will be those one or two. If you do it, if your Prime Minister does it before they leave, the newspapers and the press, especially now when it's relatively new, will say, wow, this is important enough for the Prime Minister to champion. And look, television's covering it. So parents will say, do you know, if it's important enough for the Prime Minister to take time out of his diary to champion our champions going off to represent the country, then that means it must be equally, if not more important, than those people who got degrees and had their names published in a newspaper. That will change the attitudes of parents and of teachers. We cannot have teachers and parents thinking that going into a vocational craft or technical trade is second best to academic, and you need big gestures such as the Prime Minister, such as bringing Chirag onto this platform at this FICCI conference. You know, it is critical that we make ambassadors and champions in the public eye to change attitude of the public.
I think that's a great idea. Dr. Krishnan, can we have a skill ki baat with the PM led by you for all those 20 people? I think maybe some of us should tweet and request the PM to respond. I'm sure he will. He'd love to have everybody because this is an area close to him. Now, Dr. Krishnan, before we go for a Q&A, what should we do in this country to make our skilled people the real heroes? Because they work with technology, with their hands, they create, and we must respect them, put them on a pedestal so people look upon skills, because it is skills that actually make a good society.
Thanks, Mohan. I'll come to this question. Before that, with your permission, 2 quick remarks. Yeah. Now you see the wisdom of civil servants who don't wear suits to these functions. You had a question on traditional skills to him. I thought I'll just come in and say a few words on that. I don't think necessarily the world skills competition has to be the answer to all our problems. I mean, we have a lot of issues, but more than that, substantively, the specific example that you took, which is weaving, I want to give one wonderful thing as an example that's going on. I think Siddharth of TCS is here. I don't know if you visited the TCS Ignite Center in Chennai, where such wonderful use of technology, where illiterate weavers in Northeast designs digitally transmitted to markets in New York and Europe. Wow. Real-time basis, and responses immediately from places like Milan, various fashion centers saying, no, modify this. And I have seen a live demonstration of this, and I'm absolutely stunned by the power of technology intermediating traditional skills, linking it with modern markets. And I think we need to just go back to this. Why is there a dwindling of demand for traditional skills? And plus, the moment, and you and I know this, I mean, the saris that, these very good quality saris, I mean, a sari costs 2.5–3 lakhs. So it's not lack of skill wage premium. There are workers who can produce this at an enormous premium, but there's nobody taking the craft necessarily in terms of either demand for the products, and because of which there is a lack of demand for that kind of labor. So technology is one example. Two, some of you may be familiar with this foundation that Mr. Munjal of Hero Group has started, where he has done a study and found that there is a great economic argument for doing this in terms of both self-employment, creation of markets, and he's actually now doing it on a Section 25 company basis, and I've seen some evidence of it actually working. So perhaps there are lots of answers to this, all of which we can do domestically. On your question about how do we take this forward in terms of the aspirational part, I'm glad you answered the PM question yourself. I'll follow your Twitter message and then do whatever is necessary. In terms of what we can do, two sets of things. There are a bunch of symbolic things, a lot of which was alluded to. For instance, post 2015, after the first meeting of the skill development mission, which is chaired by the Prime Minister himself, ITIs now have graduation ceremonies, not obviously of the same scale as Delhi University or IIT or IIM, but nevertheless, it's a very good beginning. Not all ITIs do it, but many ITIs do it. And my previous minister, at least during the tenure that I was here, has attended at least 15 of these ceremonies. Wow. So the cabinet minister for skills going to an ITI graduation ceremony is a very powerful message. Likewise, if you visited the Odisha Skill Development Authority chairman's office, Mr. Bakchi's office, he's got a gallery now where he has put up pictures of the brightest alumni from the ITI system, brightest stroke most successful. It's like the Distinguished Alumni Awards of the IIMs. He's now got it for about 15–20 years, and it's a grand ceremony where a lot of pomp and show, all of that happens. Three, the point that you mentioned vis-a-vis the PM for the team, on the 15th of July this year, when we celebrated the World Youth Skills Day, in Vigyan Bhavan plenary auditorium, 6 cabinet ministers met with the entire team, brought them on stage, and an audience of about 1,500 people gave them a standing ovation. And certainly the best that we can do here is to do what you suggested. We'll try and certainly take them to the PM. And fourth, events like today, Chirag being here. Yeah. So clearly these are the kind of very symbolic, powerful messaging that one can do. But I think equally, we need to continue to work on the substantive issue. Namely, if the point that you alluded to earlier, my skilling system isn't signaling productivity, isn't signaling the need for a wage premium, all that I do on the symbolism
not work.
Is of no use. If at the end of an ITI or a ILFS academy training, I come out and still get semi-skilled wages or unskilled wages, it's a matter of time before all of this talk peters into nothing. Two, the German example, where at the end of a 3.5-year diploma in automobile engineering and a 3.5-year degree in economics, and this is wage data that you can verify, the automobile mechanic
gets more money.
Actually gets more than the JP Morgan entry analyst.
Yeah.
Now, that's a very powerful message, and there can be no better messaging. 3, I think critically, the issue of pathways into mainstream education, pathways into higher technical education, and eventually pathways into director engineering of the company is perhaps the long-term way to go.
Yes. I think that's fascinating. Rajiv, you are a national expert in HR and skills. Will you lead a group to make a study how to make sure that a skill premium is created to demonstrate the skilled people have greater productivity? You are in industry, you hire thousands of people, you know this. Will you lead a study for us? It'll be a very important study. And you know Rajiv, right? He is HR, the czar for the Mahindra and Mahindra group for many years, a nationally renowned HR person.
Oh God.
And everything else.
After this eulogy, can I say no? But Ficky will have to support me.
Yeah, Ficky will support you, but please lead it for us. Right? Okay, folks, 2 questions. One male, one female. Anybody?
Just a quick comment. Last year, the Best of Nations awardee at Sao Paulo was a welder from Mahindra's.
Oh, really? So you're the right person, Rajiv. Any question, please? Then we close this session.
Over here.
Yes, sir. Next will be a lady. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I have been hearing this conversation this morning, and a thought came to my mind that the world skills and the skills agenda in India as well. The top, the policy level thought process is going after the bottom, the people, the masses that need to be skilled. But I'm from the industry. I run the industry as well as skilling establishment. What I just realized right now while hearing this conversation was that the person at the entry-level skill is there because he needs to do his job, and that's really why he's there. He's there to work. The supervisory and the manager level needs to be skilled to be able to groom them. It's like 1:100 ratio, literally.
Okay.
That's a
Simon?
big loss that we're not focusing on.
Okay. Simon?
Where do you start on skills? Top up, bottom down? It's very difficult. All skills, at whatever level, academic or craft, need to be tied into work. Therefore, an employer or a business, whether it's the government, whether it's private sector, whether it's mining, whether it's plumbing, employers need to understand to be productive and to make a profit for their shareholders and for themselves, need to increase the skills of their workforce. If they do that, then they will get people coming and applying to them for work. Young people today with modern technology do not want to go into dead-end jobs. When I was leaving university, I expected to have 1 or 2 jobs in my life. Today's young people leaving school or university know that they're going to have 17 or 18 jobs in their life. They know because they look at the internet. Because they don't want to go into boring jobs, they will look around and they will go and work for businesses that have put a premium on skills. Young people don't want to go and work, even if it's to make enough money to buy bread, with a company that is not going to develop them. So businesses really, really, really need to pick up the gauntlets and to say, we are going to attract young people and we're going to grow and make profits by actually taking on young people. And I promise you, the young people will come to those companies. They will run away from companies that do not develop them.
Simon, some good news. Our IT industry spends $2 billion a year training 2 million people who are their employees every single year. Now, one lady, and then we have a closing remarks by the young man, because we're going to hand over the future to him right now. Any lady? Yes, madam.
I've had some experience in the last 16 years from varied industries, from jewelry to air conditioning, refrigeration recently. And I find that there is a lack of trainers. And while companies want skilled people, they're not ready to invest in the trainers. You'll find the trainers doing something that they were trained in 15 years ago. So there has to be an emphasis on the trainer. We constantly have been coming for this conference for the last 10 years.
Okay.
We don't talk about trainers.
Okay, good point. Dr. Krishnan, you want to just comment and we close? Emphasis on trainers.
If you look at the educational system, which is the nearest parallel I can think of, in all of them, there is very serious prescription. For instance, if you have to get a medical college approved, there is enormous prescription in terms of what kind of teaching faculty that you need. Do you know what is prescribed to be a faculty in the ITI? To be an ITI pass out.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
Therefore, we need to go back to rewriting the ecosystem, and in the short-term skilling system, we don't yet have very formal regulations. Typically, the world over, the primary push for this has come from prescriptive regulations, but regulations that take the essence from industry in terms of what is it that the industry needs in terms of skills, get that into your ecosystem in the form of prescription. But yeah, training of trainers is a major part of the agenda, long-term agenda. It's not something on which you have results very soon.
Dr. Krishnan, before 1 minute, Dr. Krishnan, we had suggestion from FICCI that on health and safety standards, we need regulations that in many areas, only certified people should work. I think if you're able to impose it for health and safety standards across all industries, this will set up the movement.
The Health Ministry bill on this.
Health and safety too.
So the Health Ministry legislation on, currently, other than doctors, dentists and nurses, there is no regulation for other health professionals who actually have the ability to affect your health. There are a whole bunch of health professionals who can materially affect your health. Currently, including physiotherapy, for instance, completely unregulated. The health, it's a long title, I forget the name of the bill. The 2017 legislation on this, drawn up by health, but in full consultation with us, is going before the cabinet. On safety, currently the work is still underway because it's cross-cutting.
Yes.
It cuts across many ministries. So on that we are still at a drawing board stage. But I expect health bill, my feedback is it should come before the next session of Parliament.
Okay. Simon, anything?
Very briefly, to the lady who mentioned the comment, she is absolutely right. Training the trainers is... The lady is absolutely right. Training the trainers is the first major step to improving things. However, I believe that India, along with many other countries, has really radically got to look at the way in which people learn. If you're going to do 15 jobs or 20 jobs in your lifetime, you are not going to be able to go back to college, sit at a desk, or do anything like that in the future. If there is an area for embracing new technology, it has got to be the way of upgrading people's skills qualifications once they are already in the workplace. That involves employers. And secondly, using high technology so that if a plumber wants to become a bricklayer, then they don't have to do 3.5 years learning to do it. So I hear the whole thing about regulation. I think regulation is really important if you're going to define a market, who can go into a particular market as an employee. But please do not get so tied up in bureaucracy that actually all you do is stultify individuals' ambition. Individuals become entrepreneurs after they have taken their first craft or technological qualification. If you slow that down, India's working population will not grow in a way that it needs to grow to satisfy the economic and social requirements of India. So please have a look at new ways of teaching within the idea of teaching the teachers. Maybe it's a Chirag who ought to be training somebody who's 3 years younger than him using Facebook or Skype or Zoom rather than waiting for Chirag to have done 30 years at his employer when he decides that he doesn't want to work quite so hard and he'll go and become a teacher. And that's what used to happen often in the past.
Simon, we take your word seriously, so the chair is handed over to Chirag to give the closing remarks by the chair.
So I think it's been a lot of points have come out of this conversation, and one thing that I recently read is that 48% of the Indian employers find it hard to find good talent, and we have majority of the population of India in the working age group, and still this problem exists. And with the median age of India being 27.5, we've got a huge amount of possibility of this population to be actually used, to be actually skilled, and to be actually provided. And the World Skills Competition, actually I like to call it the World Skills Festival, because what it is more than just a competition. Parallelly, we have the conference program, the TVET Youth Forum. A lot of things happen in parallel to this event. Has to go grassroots level and has to happen probably state-wise, and should be a state-wise skill mission, and then happen nationally, and then happen internationally. And then we can have a lot of the things that we talk about, the weavers and things which are more specific to a specific area, to be able to focus, to give them the right focus where they deserve.
Voila. Folks.
Session. We will now break till 12:30 p.m. and then we will start the next leg of the session.
Good seeing you. Pleasure, sir. Bengal, but tera sikha new message
Hello.
We are